Today we are taking a look at villain number 2, Klaw. And now while Rhino, which is linked down below, probably also right up here, is the best villain to teach you the mechanics of Marvel Champions, I think Klaw may be one of the best villains to teach you how to actually play the game. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about his villain stages, the main scheme, strategies to take him on, round it out with some modular and hero recommendations to take on this Master of Evil. So let's just start out by taking a look at what the villain cards you're going to see when you first set up the game. Now stage 1 of Klaw has a really interesting stat line. He has 2 thwart and 0 attack, but the catch here is that his force interrupt states that whenever he gets a boost card, he gets an additional boost card. So that 0 attack can be just that, 0 if both your boost cards don't have any icons, up to higher numbers like 6 or 7 if they are loaded with boost. This unpredictability makes Klaw super interesting and dynamic every single time you play him. The first stage also only has 12 HP. This is actually really low. Solo players can blitz through this in like a turn or two, but do we want to do that? Probably not. Like we discussed in our last video, unless we're playing a rush strategy, we want to use the first stage of the villain to build up our board state, put upgrades, supports onto the table, get the engine up and running, because every time we flip the villain, they're going to become more challenging and make it harder to build. So use the low attack and no ability on this first stage to grow in power, because he does get a bit tougher when we flip him to stage 2, which is where we're actually going to start if we're playing in expert mode. So on stage 2, he has 2 scheme and 1 attack, but he does have that same ability. He gets 2 boost cards on the attack, and this will carry through to stage 3. So now we're guaranteed at least a minimum of 1 from his attack. His health shoots way up to 18 points per player, adds a pretty decent amount of health when we do flip to the second stage and when we reveal him, either by flipping to his stage when we're playing standard or setting up the game in expert. We have to go find the Immortal Klaw side scheme and reveal it. Now, the Immortal Klaw is not as scary as I thought it would be when I was first starting the game. It states that Klaw gets plus 10 hit points and it's seeded with 3 threat per player to start us out. It also has an acceleration icon. So really his stat line in stage 2, he has 28 health, but you can reduce 10 of this health by just taking out the side scheme, because once the side scheme is gone, he immediately loses that entire health boost. So this is not something that you typically need to worry about immediately. The worst part about this side scheme is probably the acceleration icon, because we have a pretty low threat cap on that main scheme, which we'll talk about here in a second. But that acceleration, if I'm able to handle the extra threat from that, usually I'm not really worried about it too much. I'm going to make sure the board state is stable, maybe even get Klaw down to about 10 HP before thwarting down that side scheme, and which would immediately flip him. So if he's at 10 health, you thwart down the Immortal Klaw, it will defeat him and immediately flip him. That being said, there are some strategies that you can employ to make sure that you don't see this multiple times. If you're starting an expert, maybe you want to thwart this down right after you've reset the encounter deck. So if I can thwart this down immediately, if I'm playing Cable and I have a stupid amount of thwart, just take it out, right? But if I'm playing a game where I'm gonna hang on to this, leave this on the table for a while, and my encounter deck is running thin, I may just like leave this out, let that encounter deck reset, then take it out so it's not in the reshuffle. So tricks like that allow you to avoid seeing this multiple times in a game. When we flip Klaw to stage 3, he has massive health pools. He is at 22 hit points per player, and he starts with a tough card. Stage 3 Klaw can be a slog. His stats both get a boost here, up to 3-2, meaning he's going to be swinging really hard. And then the same strategy applies here. If I'm playing expert, I typically want to spend around 80% of the game before we flip to stage 3, because he's going to hit you hard when he comes out. Stage 3 Klaw will hunt you down and take you out, so be ready for him before you flip. This is the first scenario in Marvel Champions that has multiple stages to the main scheme. With Rhino, we lose if we just hit the cap of 7 per player. With Klaw, if we complete the first stage, we have a whole nother one to work through before we lose. This gives us a bit of flexibility, and in solo, will bring some of our alter egos into play, much more than what we got to see in Rhino. The first stage is underground distribution. During setup of the game, we have to go find the defense network, so this is printed on stage 1A. Defense Network is a side scheme that comes in with 2 threat plus 1 threat per player and has a crisis icon. Now, unlike Immortal Klaw, and you'll start with both of these on the table in expert mode, This is a main priority to clear. Since the crisis icon means we cannot remove threat from the main scheme, stage 1B of underground distribution is going to clear really quickly with its 6 threat per player cap if we don't get it under control. But Klaw is not going to chill out in the early game. He has another trick, because when you flip stage 1B and you're setting up the game, you have to discard cards from the encounter deck until a minion is discarded and you put that minion into play engaged with the first player. Note real quick that this is put into play. This is something that caught me when I first started playing. So you do not resolve any when revealed effects. This minion is being put into play, so when revealed or surge, like if you flip a weapons runner, those will not trigger any of those abilities. That can be really nice and something that makes the game a lot easier if once you realize that rule. This effect can be pretty easy if you hit like an armor guard or one of the weapon runners, which are the minions that come in his kit with the setup. But if you're running a minion heavy modular set like the recommended Masters of Evil, you can have a problem real quickly. And this is one of the reasons I enjoy messing around with the modular sets in Klaw so much, because if you have a modular set that revolves around a big minion like MODOK or something, like you could see them much sooner than you would want. You can see them before you even take your mulligan, which is insane. When underground distribution is completed with its 6th threat per player, we move on to Secret Rendezvous. We have a similar effect here. When we're going to flip into this stage, we're going to discard cards from the encounter deck till a minion is discarded and put that minion into play with the first player. Other than that effect, there is no special effect on stage 2 other than if you hit 8th threat per player, you lose the game. A lot of my Klaw games, I will see stage 2. Unlike Rhino, scheming out of stage 1 is not the end of the world. We get to start fresh with stage 2, but once we're here, we need to be a bit more careful on flipping to Alter Ego and or knowing where those extra scheme cards are in our encounter deck. Even though we do have 1 extra threat as opposed to Rhino, but still, that 8 can go really quick, especially in a solo game. Klaw's boost icon distribution is probably more important than for a lot of villains because we're seeing nearly double the amount of boost cards due to his ability. So in standard mode, specifically standard 1, and I think I'm going to keep it talking about standard 1, he has 1.0 boost icons per card and 1.4 in expert mode when we add in those expert 1 cards. Now I do want to make a note that the numbers I showed in the Rhino video were not the correct average. I actually added the boost icons to the total number of boost icons in the set without adding the number of cards. And so while these numbers that I'm presenting with Klaw are a little bit lower than what I presented in the Rhino video, they are in fact higher in reality. So sorry about that, math is really hard. So 1.0, 1.4. So with that knowledge, we can expect to see Klaw to attack for around 2 plus his base attack in standard or 3 plus his basic attack in expert. But, this can be wildly different. You could draw 6 icons or 0. And so the distribution, you're thinking kind of on an average on, do I need to defend? What's the worst that could happen? It could be 0. You could literally get hit for 0. And also, this is changed drastically based on the mod set you throw in here. So if you have a mod set with 15 boost icons, be prepared to take some damage. And so I like to talk about this, the boost icons and kind of what it's shaping up to be in these videos. Just know that it can swing pretty crazy in Klaw. The other fun consideration here is boost effects. We have Weapons Runner in his kit, which puts Weapons Runner into play engaged with you. Again, the nuance here between when revealed and put into play. When I first started, whenever I put him into play, I would surge him immediately. That is the incorrect way to play. If he's put into play, he does not surge, but he will attack you if we are going through and Klaw attacks. Boost effect puts Weapons Runner. We're going to move on to minion attacks that Weapons Runner is going to attack. So it's basically like 1 extra icon with a lingering effect of him being around until you take care of him. But boost effects are pretty interesting because I want to circle back to my comment about modular sets, because if you have nasty boost effects, just know you're probably going to see it in a Klaw game. If you're adding modular sets with crazy stars and those boost stars, you're going to see it. So that's kind of fun and challenging and interesting when you're building your encounter deck. Klaw's kit is relatively straightforward with not a ton of tricks up his sleeve, which is kind of what you want for a hero, or I'm sorry, a villain. Klaw is not the hero. For a villain that is more straightforward and teaching you how to interact with the game. I'm going to call out two cards here that you really need to be on the lookout for. There's Klaw's Vengeance, and then there's Sound Manipulation. Klaw's Vengeance has an effect based on if you're an alter ego or hero form. Alter ego is sad. You have to discard a card at random from your hand, but you really need to know about the hero form effect. These are his extra activations. So in hero form, he is going to attack you. He gets the 2 boost cards, and if the attack deals damage, you have to place a threat on the main scheme. This can be damage dealt to an ally or to an identity, so pretty much unless you're defending or reducing his attack to 0 somehow, this is going to place a threat on the main scheme. So if we have an extra activation and threat on the main scheme, this can be a huge swing at the wrong time. There are 2 of these in the deck, so be ready to either take 2 attacks, and don't let the scheme get up to 5 on stage 1 or 7 on stage 2, where this card can immediately lose you the game. Sound Manipulation also has an effect based on what form you're in. Again, the hero side is a bit scarier, where you will take 2 damage and Klaw heals 2. This damage cannot be defended, so if you have 2 or less health, this could just be a game ender. Just make sure you know where these are and understand that this can happen. If you have 2 health, an encounter card can deal you direct damage and kill you. So if you're running low on health, just know where these are and understand maybe I need to flip to hero or find some way, or just don't get down to 2 health, which is easier said than done. If you are an alter ego, this card is pretty easily combated though. So he heals for 4 damage, and it states that if no damage was healed this way, then this card surges. So if I'm rolling down and Klaw is at full health, I like to try and find a way to ping him for 1 to reduce this card's efficiency, because if it only heals for 1, it still doesn't surge. It does not have to heal for that 4. It only has to heal for 1 and not surge. And now we're feeling pretty good. Feels like we cheated that encounter card a little bit. We can turn off that surge easily. So how are we going to take this criminal down? Starting the game is a challenge, and that's kind of the whole fun thing that you have to deal with. You have to deal with a minion and the Defense Network side scheme. If you are in expert mode, you get another side scheme, Immortal Klaw. So you're seeing a minion, a crisis icon, and an acceleration icon in expert mode, no acceleration if you're in standard. There's a lot going on here when we start. So we need to make sure we can take care of the problems presented before we do too much building. Because of that acceleration icon plus the crisis icon, we will blitz through the main scheme very quickly, giving us another minion, and that can snowball out of control. So priority 1 is usually the Defense Network, getting rid of that crisis. If we can take that out, then we can start thwarting on the main. We can lose the main once, but we don't want to lose it too early, because then we're going to have another minion to take care of. I do say that this is usually priority number 1, because that can shift based off the minion you get. If you get one of the armor guards or the weapon runner, you can basically ignore them for a little bit and clean up bigger problems. But if you get a minion from your mod set, and it's a nasty one like Modok that was mentioned earlier, we are going to have to balance our priorities, and that's what I think makes Klaw so challenging. If we get a big minion and we have so many things to focus on at the start of the game, we're on a timer, we can't lose the main, we have to take out Modok, but there's side schemes that's going to accelerate out in like minimum 3 turns. So understanding what to prioritize at the start of the game is crucial. You need to get everything under control before you start building, because if you're sinking resources into a build turn, Klaw is going to increase his tempo against you, and you can dig yourself a grave pretty quickly. Now, how do we help balance those priorities? That is the biggest question, and something that does come with experience in the game, but let me see if I can have a few pointers. We do get to see the minion that we are going to be taking on before we draw our opening hand and resolve our mulligans. So this can give us some priorities to look for. So if we get a big minion, we have Modok out there, I may be looking for an event card to help with him, maybe like a swinging web kick. Or if we have a weapons runner or something that's a little guy that I can kind of ignore for a little bit, we're going to be looking for an event card to help with some of the threat on the table. All that to be said, if it's both are bad situations, say everything is going crazy, allies are a nice flexible option here, because they can help you with the threat or minion control and a block from Klaw. Klaw can hit you really hard, and because of his variability and boost icons, you can, if you have a 9 health hero, you can lose like 70% of your health turn 1 if you get some unlucky draws. And so I like to look for an ally drop on turn 1. That's typically my go-to route, because I can use the ally to help with both threat and a block or damage if need be. That being said, it's all flexible, it all changes. It's a read the game state and understand what's going to be worse for me. Am I a hero that excels at threat mitigation and I have this nasty minion? Find an answer to the minion and work your magic with threat mitigation later. Or if you are awful at threat and you can kill minions like crazy, search for that thwart card. Find a way to take out the side schemes and then you can deal with the minions. I said you cannot build turn 1. You can. Just be aware that Klaw can ramp very quickly. So the problem staring at you in the face can gain some momentum and kind of get a little bit out of control. So think about how that build will help you handle more threats as they come very quickly. The nice thing about Klaw is that unless it's added with a modular set, Klaw does not have any overkill. So our tried and true strategy of just throwing allies in front of large attacks works wonders here. This is especially true because of the large variance of what he can hit for. Poor Ironheart can take an attack of 8 a lot easier than we can. He also does not have Stalwart or Steady, so we can status lock him to great effect. The last universal tidbit of advice that I'm going to throw out here is there's a deceptively large amount of threat to manage in Klaw, not just with his starting side schemes, but there are more schemes in the deck. Plus, with double the amount of boost cards in his kit, we're actually going to burn through that encounter deck pretty quickly, meaning we're going to see acceleration tokens at a higher rate for the main. So while it's not game ending or crazy challenge, it is impactful. So the longer the game goes on, the quicker the threat is going to be built up. So when at a good clip, build a tempo strategy or be ready to handle that threat and understand that the threat is going to accumulate a little bit quicker than with some of the other villains. Some of the cards to run against them. These are universal cards that are not necessarily required to run, but just some of the fun interactions that I have seen. And I don't even actually know if this is going to be a standard segment in the video. Let me know in the comments if this is something that you care about, you don't care about, if you want to expand it on a little bit more. I'm still trying to figure out exactly the formula for these videos and what information I want to convey in the videos. So let me know. But a card to run against him is target acquired. So this is a upgrade that says that when a boost effect is triggered, you can discard this and ignore that boost effect effectively. It's probably not worth running in his recommended set, but if you're adding cards to the deck with some nasty boost effects, you're going to see more of them. And so target acquired is going to help mitigate some of those. And in the same vein, Defiance can be nice. Now, Defiance is a little tough because you don't get to see the boost card before you get to play it, but it can be nice to mitigate the damage coming at you because most of that damage, all of that damage in stage 1 is coming from the boost card. So if you can negate half of it, we're feeling pretty good with Defiance. Now let's talk about modular sets that we can use to change up Klaw outside of his recommended Masters of Evil. We're going to go through a mod set that makes it easier. I'm going to recommend Hydra Assault from the Rise of Red Skull expansion here. Now this mod set comes with its own challenges, but most importantly, we're only adding 2 boost icons across 6 cards. So now we know Klaw is not going to hit us very hard. The scary card that is added here are the Flame Soldiers, because if it's drawn as a boost card against an undefended attack, you have to discard an upgrade or support you control, which is a super feel bad situation, but that means know where they are, or basic defend, or chump block with an ally so that you can mitigate that boost effect or run target acquired. This set also adds 5 minions for us to hit with that main scheme setting up or flipping to stage 2, and each one of these is going to be much easier than any of those Master of Evil minions Klaw normally runs with. A modular set to make this harder comes to you from Villain Theory, so you all can thank him for this. Sinister Assault from the Sinister Motives expansion brings in 6 very tough minions. All of them have villainous, and every single card in the modular set has 3 boost icons. So not only are we going to need to figure out a way to deal with like Scorpion, we're flooding the deck with extra damage for Klaw to draw on. This is brutal. This is, especially if you get one of these turn 1 with that setup, ugh, gross. And then this is a new section by request where I'm going to recommend a thematic mod set. That's going to be Ransacked Armory here. Not only does it bring in more armored guards, which Klaw clearly likes to run with, it starts to arm them with weapons to try out. So we're told in the flavor text on Underground Distribution that there's an Underground's weapons network that is going on, that S.H.I.E.L.D. is somehow connected and trying to investigate. So this mod set adds some of those alleged weapons to the deck for players to interact with. Now it's hero time. We're going to talk about some heroes. A good hero to try out against Klaw is Shadowcat. Shadowcat has a lot of answers to the problems Klaw can throw at you. When she is in phased form, she can ignore the crisis on the defense network, meaning you can kind of focus your energy in another spot and not need to blitz that side scheme. And you can focus and build, take out minions or whatever. She has really excellent thwarting potential, so the massive amounts of threat can be kind of trivialized with her abilities, and she has really good defense. So if Klaw is going to be swinging at you really hard, if you loaded that modular set into the encounter deck, a lot of boost icons, she can pretty much ignore a lot of that damage if she defends in phased. Klaw is really good at preventing heroes from building quickly. Kitty does not have a ton of build, so try Kitty Pride out against Klaw if you're struggling, and hopefully her strengths can counter the threats he throws at you. For a fun hero to try Scarlet Witch. Wanda likes to deal with and manipulate boost icons, so she can replace boost cards with her printed effect, as well as increase or decrease the number of boost icons on the cards with her crest upgrade. So if we combine this with a modular set like Sinister Assault, which has a ton of boost icons, we can start to benefit from Klaw's strengths. More boost icons means it's more fun for Miss Marvel. And then the challenge hero. If you want a challenge against Klaw, I'm going to recommend running Iron Man, mainly in solo. Klaw requires you to flip at the start of the game and take care of threats. Iron Man needs to build his suit and alter ego before he flips, and is really ineffective before he's able to do that. But what does Klaw stop you from doing? Building at the start of the game. So it's a crazy start. How are you going to stay down and build your suit without losing the main, getting another minion? Good question. I'm excited to hear how you do it because it's a tough one. And then lastly, Anadod suggested in the Rhino video that I talk about heroes that have a better time against Klaw, specifically pulling from the core set because Klaw is from the core set. So I'm going to recommend you try out Black Panther versus Klaw. Vibranium is Black Panther's resource card. The double wilds here can help clear Klaw's attachments, the sonic converters and the solid sound bodies. So we're going to have a lot easier of a time taking those out by spending the required resources. We can grab Tactical Genius with our setup ability, really help getting that threat taken care of at the start. And so while Black Panther is also a build hero like Iron Man, he hits the ground running much quicker than Tony, so at the start of the game, he's not going to be as hindered. So there is Klaw, the second hero in Marvel Champions. I really like Klaw. Klaw is one of those that I go back to multiple times. Probably my most played villain in all of Marvel Champions. So now I'm opening the floor up to you. What strategies have you employed that help take down this Master of Evil? Let me know down in the comments. Also, what heroes do you enjoy running against Klaw? Either because they're challenging or because they're fun, thematically or mechanically. Let me know down in the comments, and hopefully, one, I like looking at that, but also as other people are reading through, it may give a spark of creativity or an idea for them to run. So thank you all so very much for hanging out. I appreciate y'all. We'll be back soon with Ultron. There will not be as long of a break this time between there. There's a lot of circumstances that made this video slightly delayed. I'll see y'all soon for Ultron. So make sure you follow the channel. You don't miss that one. Thanks for hanging out. See you around. Peace.